G'day guys, welcome back to the channel. My name's Kaitlyn and I'm an American learning to live down under here in beautiful Sydney, Australia. So as many of you know, my partner is Australian and I am over here in Australia on a partner visa, a prospective marriage visa. And while my partner and I know we have several years of visas and visa headaches ahead of us, at one point I will be able to apply for citizenship in the next few years. So what better way to start practicing for my citizenship test than by taking a practice citizenship test? And who knows, maybe I might actually know some of these already. So let's see if this American can pass the Australian citizenship test. So I'm here on the Department of Home Affairs webpage for the Australian government. It does give you the practice citizenship test. There's also a booklet that apparently I should read or should have known before I took this test. Whoops. It's called Australian Citizenship, Our Common Bond. Apparently that has all of the information that I would need to know, but you know what? I'm not going to read that booklet just yet. I will wait until after the test. I kind of want to see how many of these questions I already know before I even look at the booklet. So this test has 20 multiple choice questions, and apparently there are 5 questions about Australian values that I have to answer correctly, and I need at least a 75% mark overall in order to pass this practice test. Let's start with number 1. What do we commemorate on Anzac Day? The landing of the Australian and New Zealand Army Corps at Gallipoli, Turkey during World War I, the arrival of the first free settlers from Great Britain, or the landing of the first fleet at Sydney Cove. So this one I already know. Anzac Day did just pass, and obviously the answer is A, the landing of the Australian and New Zealand Army Corps. So obviously Anzac is short for the Australian and New Zealand Army Corps, which should be one hint and gives it away right away in case you didn't already know this. But also C, the landing of the first fleet at Sydney Cove was January 26th, which is what Australia Day is. So the answer to this one is definitely A, the landing of the Australian and New Zealand Army Corps. Question 2, what are the colors of the Australian Aboriginal flag? A, black, red, and yellow, B, green, white, and black, or C, blue, white, and green. Living over here in Australia, you do see the Aboriginal flag quite often, and it is a fairly simplistic flag in the structure. There aren't a ton of colors behind it. It's just 3 simple colors, and I know that the answer to this is A, black, red, and yellow. Number 3, what is the Commonwealth coat of arms? A, the national anthem, B, Australia's national flower, or C, the official symbol of Australia, which identifies Commonwealth property. I feel like a coat of arms couldn't possibly be a song, so the national anthem doesn't make sense. Australia's national flower, I don't see that being a coat of arms. It would probably be C, so by process of elimination, we're going to go with C. What happened in Australia on the 1st of January 1901? A, the Australian Constitution was changed by a referendum. B, the separate colonies were united into a federation of states called the Commonwealth of Australia, or C, the Australian and New Zealand Army Corps was formed. So while I don't know the specific details, I knew that technically this is the day that Australia became the country of Australia instead of the group of colonies under the British Empire. So knowing that and the way that the answers are worded, I'm going to go with B. Number 5, what is the capital city of Australia? I feel like a lot of Americans would get this wrong if you just ask them on the street. A, Brisbane, B, Canberra, or C, Perth. I've been there several times with my partner. He does drive back and forth to Canberra for work pretty often, and if he's going on a day where I don't have work, I would go in the truck with him. It's an absolutely beautiful drive all the way down there, so the answer is B, Canberra. Number 6, which of these is an example of freedom of speech? Interesting question. A, people can peacefully protest against a government action. B, men and women are treated equally in a court of law. Or C, Australians are free to not follow a religion. So while technically, loosely, all 3 of these are true and accurate statements, as far as freedom of speech goes, you would be talking about writing, talking, protesting. So the answer to this would be A. Number 7, which of these statements about government in Australia is correct? A, the government does not allow some religions. B, the government in Australia is secular. or C, religious laws are passed by Parliament. Australia is not a theocracy. It is not a government that is run by religion. And in Australia, you do have the freedom to practice any religion, so long as those religious practices don't violate the rights of others. So the answer to this is B, the Australian government is secular. Number 8, which of these is an example of equality in Australia? A, everyone follows the same religion. B, men and women have equal rights. C, everyone belongs to the same public party. I feel like just by a matter of common sense, everybody knows that A isn't true and C isn't true. B is a little bit loose as far as equality, but sure, we will go with that. B, men and women have equal rights. Number 9, which of these is a responsibility of Australian citizens aged 18 years or over? A, to attend local council meetings. B, to vote in federal and state or territory elections and in a referendum. Or C, to have a current Australian passport. It's not A, attending any sort of local council meeting is not mandatory. And as far as passports go, I think it's less than 60% of Australians actually have a currently valid passport. So the answer to this is B, voting in Australia is compulsory. And if you're 18 or over, you do have to vote in state and federal elections over here in Australia. Otherwise, you face a fine. Speaking of passports, number 10, which of these statements about passports is correct? A, Australian citizens can apply for an Australian passport. B, permanent residents can hold an Australian passport. Or C, Australian citizens need to hold a passport and visa to return to Australia. So it's definitely not B, permanent residents are not able to hold a passport in Australia. As far as C goes, you don't need a visa to return, but you do need your Australian passport to return to Australia. So the answer to this is A, Australian citizens can hold an Australian passport. Number 11, which of these statements about voting in Australian elections is correct? A, people are free and safe to vote for any candidate. B, voting is by a show of hands. C, people must write their name on their vote. It's definitely not B. As far as C goes, I don't know if you have to write your name on a ballot or anything like that. The first election where I'm actually in Australia is coming up, so it'll be interesting to see how that goes. But I don't think that's a requirement. So process of elimination, going with A, people are free and safe to vote for any candidate. Number 12, what is the name of the legal document that sets out the basic rules for the government of Australia? A, the Australian Federation. B, the Australian Commonwealth. Or C, the Australian Constitution. Only one of these is an actual document, and that is C, the Australian Constitution. So we're going to go with C just based on that alone. Number 13, what is a referendum? A, a vote to change the government. B, a vote to change the Australian Constitution. Or C, a vote to change the Prime Minister. I actually don't know this one. So A doesn't make sense, a vote to change the government. That doesn't quite make sense. B, a vote to change the Australian Constitution. I feel like amendments to the Constitution wouldn't really come up that often. Whereas C, a vote to change the Prime Minister. Australia has had quite a few prime ministers in the past couple decades, so I feel like the answer to this would probably be C, a vote to change the Prime Minister. Number 14, which arm of government has the power to interpret and apply laws? A, legislative. B, executive. C, judicial. Let's find out that these three branches of government are the exact same branches of government that we have over in the States. And I am completely blanking out on what the difference between the legislative and judicial branches are over here in Australia. So because of that, I'm going to go with C. I know B is executive, which in this case would be the Prime Minister. In America, it's the President. I am completely blanking out on my middle school history lessons. I'm going to go with C, judicial, but it could very easily be A, legislative. 15, which of these is a role of the Governor General? A, the appointment of state premiers. B, signing all bills passed by the Australian Parliament into law. Or C, the appointment of the head of state. I don't know this one. I'm completely stumped. I feel like it wouldn't be the appointment of state premiers. I could be wrong. Isn't that the Prime Minister who does that? Or all of Parliament? I don't know. I don't know if that would just be the role of a Governor General though. As far as B or C, I'm not entirely sure, so I'm going to go with C, the appointment of the head of state, but honestly, I'm just not sure. Number 16, which of these statements best demonstrates Australian values about freedom of expression? A, everyone can peacefully express their opinions within the law. B, people with different views from me need to keep quiet. Or C, only approved topics can be discussed. I feel like obviously we're talking about freedom of expression. There is freedom of expression over here in Australia. So the answer to this is A, everybody can peacefully express their opinions within the law. 17, should people in Australia make an effort to learn English? A, people in Australia should speak whichever language is most commonly spoken in their local neighborhood. B, there is no expectation to learn any particular language in Australia. C, yes, English is the national language of Australia, and it helps to get an education, a job, and to integrate into the community. Obviously, this answer is C. If you are coming to Australia, you need to know English, at least on a conversational level. I believe you don't need to be completely fluent in the language, but you do need to be able to read, write, and speak fairly fluently. And I know there's supposed to be a new English language requirement for incoming visa holders from different countries. So obviously, learning English is a requirement to immigrate over here to Australia. 18. In Australia, can you encourage violence against a person or a group of people if you have been insulted? A, yes, if you do not intend to carry out the violence. B, no, it is against Australian values and the law. C, sometimes if I feel very offended. Obviously, it's B, no, it's against Australian values and it's against the law to commit any sort of physically violent act against another person. 19. Should people tolerate one another where they find they disagree? A, it is against the law to disagree with one another. B, no, people only need to treat each other with respect if they agree with one another. Or C, yes, peaceful disagreement reflects Australian values in relation to mutual respect. I feel like a lot of these are tongue-in-cheek, like you should just know what these are, like who's going to answer A or B in these kinds of questions. Obviously, it's C. Number 20, which of the following is an example of contributing to the Australian community? A, volunteering or fundraising for a charity is a great opportunity to strengthen our community. B, I should not make any effort to get to know other people. Or C, people in Australia should not contribute to the community because Australia is a free country. I feel like C makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. Obviously, the answer to this is A. So my mark was 90%. I needed 75% in order to pass, and I needed to answer all of the Australian value questions correctly, which I did. So technically, I just passed. It looks like I answered 2 questions wrong. 13, what is a referendum? A vote to change the Australian Constitution. Did not know that. And question 15, which of these is the role of the Governor General, signing all bills passed by the Australian Parliament into law? That one I knew had tripped me up. That one I was really just guessing and wasn't entirely sure. So it's good to know this for the future. Yeah, it looks like as far as the actual test goes, I've passed. Obviously, I'm going to be reading the booklet and all later on, further down the track when I'm actually closer to getting permanent residency and then applying for citizenship later on in a few years. That is definitely not something I need to worry about right now. That is quite a few years away. So that is it for this video, you guys. I hope you liked it. If you did, hit the like and subscribe button down below to join our little Ameri-Australian family. I post on Mondays and normally Thursdays about the differences between American and Australian culture and the overall process of learning to live down under. My name's Kaitlyn, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!